The productivity problem is real. Most valuable work that happens in a law firm is arguably the work of the attorney. And yet we don't hold that attorney's time to the standard that we should. We don't think about how we can do things better, more efficiently in ways that can separate these other tasks from them. Let's start with the solo owner first, because that's an even bigger challenge, because the solo firm owner is wearing a bunch of hats that they have no choice, right? Like they're doing many different things, but that's where we need to really understand the power of efficiency when it comes to their time. And then once you start hiring attorneys, it becomes the same math, but it's then expounded, meaning it's not just about not having them do something that's beneath them, right? But it's being able to push more work product through them. Now, in a previous episode of the podcast, I talked about the billable hour. I talked about alternative fee structures. This becomes even more compounded or expounded when we're doing flat fee. So if an attorney can push 20 estate plans through in a month, and now we take some tasks off of them, give drafting out to somebody else, give client interaction out to somebody else, and all they're doing is initial meeting with the client and then reviewing the documents before they go out. We now went from 5 hours to a plan to 2 hours to a plan for the attorney. The attorney can now do 40 or 50 plans a month instead of 20. What we just did is 2.5x their revenue possibilities by simply changing who does some of the work. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about different ways that you can buy back some of your time, that you can unlock some of your productivity. And at the highest of levels, somebody whose time is very, very valuable, buying back that time can be an exponential lever in the growth of your law firm. So starting with the solo attorney, one of the Clio trend reports that I highlighted in that previous video where I talked about the hourly billing model, I referenced a study that Clio did in 2018, and this hasn't changed. I mean, you can argue it's 7-8 years old now. I've been using this study for the last 7 years talking about it, so maybe I need to ask Clio to do a refresh, but the way people operate hasn't changed, and therefore I don't think the numbers have changed. They surveyed 2,000 law firm owners, and they said, hey, how much of your day or how many hours? So what they did is they looked at like how many hours of legal work did you do in the year? They divided that by the number of days. They got an average number of hours per day. And then they said, okay, how much of that was actually billed to the client and how much of that was actually collected on? And what the data reported is that the average attorney is doing 2.4 hours of billable work in a day, billing out 1.9 hours, and then collecting 1.6 hours. So when we think about this, if the attorney is spending the rest of that time doing, say, marketing, selling, bookkeeping, website management, those are all things that if we were to delegate them to somebody else, if we were to hand them off, that would free up the business owner attorney to perhaps do more legal work. And maybe they could move the needle from being 2.4 hours of legal work a day to 4 hours of legal work a day. So the difference there of going from 2.4 to 4 is, let's just say, a difference of 1.6. 1.6 divided by 2.4 is a 67% increase in what's possible for them. So if you think of this in the context, if you're a solo listening to this and you're doing, say, $300,000 in annual revenue right now, what if you could do 67% more of that? 67% of 300,000 is 200,000. So if you can unlock 1.6 hours per day, that could turn into $200,000 more of revenue for you. What would you be willing to pay for that? What would you be willing to pay to unlock that? Because the crazy thing is like we think about it and we're like, well, I can't hire a bookkeeper because a bookkeeper is going to cost me $1,000 or $2,000 a month. $1,000 or $2,000 a month is $12,000 to $24,000 a year. So I'm holding on to a function. Now, maybe this function alone is not going to unlock the total amount, but let's just say it did. I'm holding on to this function and allowing it to cost me $200,000 of revenue. We're not really good at math, are we? Right? Let's take something more. Let's say it's marketing, right? I'm spending my time on marketing. I'm tweaking the website. I'm writing blog posts. Okay, what would it cost to put an SEO agency in charge of that? What if I were to hire an agency to do my marketing, do my SEO, right? Probably we can get started for $3,000 to $4,000 a month. So you're talking about a $36,000 to $48,000 cost to unlock to potentially $200,000 in revenue, right? Not as much of a slam dunk, but it's still a more than 5x return on your investment, right? So we approach these conversations, we approach these discussions, we approach these thoughts from a place of what can I afford? And we fail to think about the opportunity cost of not doing it. We fail to think about what would be possible if we did execute on that. And one can argue, and this is really at every stage of business growth, is when I make the investment, I don't get the return immediately. And you would be right. But we also think of things in annual terms when in reality, that is not how long it takes to see the result. For example, one of the big pushbacks I get from law firm owners who need to hire an attorney, when I say you need to hire an attorney, they say, well, I can't afford $120,000 salary. And I look at them and I say, well, really, is that true? They're like, yeah, I don't even have I don't have any bank account where I have $120,000 in the bank. How could I do that? That's what I'm paying myself. Okay, let me ask you this. What is the average client worth to you? The average client is worth $5,000. Okay, great. So would you agree that 2 more clients in a month would cover the salary of a $120,000 person? Yes or no? The answer is yes, right? $10,000 would cover a $120,000 salary. So how long do you think it would take you if you brought another attorney into your firm for you to be able to go and find 2 more clients than you're already finding in a given month? And they'll think about it and they'll say, I don't know, maybe 4, 6 weeks, 2 months at the most. Okay. So we're not solving a $120,000 problem. We're solving a $20,000 problem. We're solving, how do I pay somebody for 2 months while I go and solve this issue? And then what's the opportunity cost of not doing this? What's the opportunity cost of saying, no, I'm just going to keep it there? Well, we know that hiring an attorney, when they're fully booked, that attorney is going to be worth $1 million to your firm in revenue, right? So that's $83,000 of revenue a month. So the opportunity cost is not getting $83,000 of revenue in. We didn't want to take a $10,000 a month investment to be able to get an $83,000 a month return. It starts to not make a lot of sense at all when we think of it this way, doesn't it? And this is the magic of understanding the numbers, understanding the business of law. It's not what you think, right? Like, so many of these decisions are easy to make when you really think about the cost, the investment, right? And how long you need to carry that before you see some results. So data from a Clio 2025 survey highlights that 42% of attorneys feel burned out regularly, and 49% report an inability to disconnect from work. And this happens because of, in my opinion, because of two things. Number one, because too much is expected of the attorney. And this is the law firm owner's fault. So you as a firm owner need to think about this, because the attorneys on your staff are holding too many things on their plate. Your expectation of them is a certain level of progress, a certain level of file movement, and a certain level of performance. But the reality is that you're expecting that perhaps without giving them the supports they need. And what we need to do is we need to look at our attorneys in the same way we look at ourselves, and understand that if I unlock for myself another 1.6 hours in a day, or 1.4, I forget what number we were using before, I think 1.6 hours in a day, that translated to another 200,000 in revenue. We have to play the same game with our staff. If I expect my attorney to churn out $1 million of work, they have to have the paralegal to support it, the legal assistant to support them, because we need to allow each person to only do the work that they must do so that they can maximize the throughput of what's possible for them. And now this is why I would argue that you hire the attorney first, and then you hire the paralegal second, and then the legal assistant third, as opposed to the other way around, because it's going to take you time to fill the attorney's plate. So they don't need the support. They could hold all the different jobs until they're busy enough that they can't. That becomes a restrictor in them being able to perform what we need them to perform. When they do get busy, we then can add the paralegal to the mix and then make them more efficient, because the paralegal now takes a whole bunch of the work that they were doing off of their plate. And then we look at the paralegal and we say, okay, you're not busy yet. We'll just let you get busier. Okay, now you're super busy. Let's bring in a legal assistant. Let's bring in somebody who's not a paralegal. They cost a lot less, but you're going to train them on how to do the most basic things that you're doing so that you can hand that stuff off to them. And that is how we create efficiency in the business, but also how we create quality of life for our players, for the people who are involved in delivering the service. The research from Lean Law shows that solo practitioners lose an average of $218,400 annually by spending just 15 hours per week on administrative tasks instead of billable legal work. This is really the flip side of that other Clio study that I shared earlier, but it's also demonstrating the same math of, what is unlocking another, 1.6 hours per day. That's actually less than 15 hours. It's half of that. So I would argue that the Lean Law numbers are different because they have an adopted alternative fee billing. So on the hourly model, that's all it's worth. But in alternative fee billing, it's worth a lot more. Let's see. The Clio 2025 Legal Trends Report reveals that solo firms that embrace technology-driven efficiency, what they call vertical growth, achieve 2 times the revenue growth of industry averages. These efficient firms handle 37% more cases than their peers without adding a single staff member. What's interesting is that in 2025, perhaps we weren't even looking at AI as a lever. This is simply technology adoption. The reality is that now with AI, there's even more that we can do. Now, I don't want to go into AI in this particular talk, so we're going to table that for another conversation. You have to be careful about hallucination risk, and I'm not going to go into the specifics of how to use AI to create leverage, but both regular old technology old technology that we haven't used yet, so it's really new technology for us, but that versus AI is also technology. So but technology adoption in workflow and being able to work more efficiently can really put the rocket burners, can put the afterburners, can put the extra oomph into all the people that we have working on our team. So we want to try to move away from doing everything manually to try to automate and systemize in a way that technology is really moving a lot of the things that were being done, manually, in that process, maybe handling a lot of the client interaction so that we're still talking to our clients, but we're not needing to talk to them about every little thing. It's insane how efficient we can get, how much we can do with the right technology stack in place. And that's the biggest issue is, I find clients, entrepreneurs in general, we like toys. We like to chase after the latest thing. We like to try the latest thing. And the problem is that we allow that to become a distraction to what we really want, which is our business growth, our business profitability. And I invite you, instead of chasing the latest shiny object, to approach technology from the reverse. In other words, I'm not going to try a technology because it sounds cool, but I am going to look at a business process that we're doing, and I'm going to say, how can we do this better? For example, a firm that has a complex pricing structure because of all the different variables that go into a specific, type of case that they're going to handle. And, the sales team can't quote it on their own. They need to go to the sales manager, say, here's what I've got. Here's the situation. Give me a price. It's a highly inefficient way of working. There is a tool out there called Alt-Fee, and this is not a promotion for Alt-Fee, but there's a tool out there. I just happen to know that there's a piece of technology out there that allows you to add in all of these layers into the mechanism so that your sales team can just answer a series of questions posed to the client, and behind the scenes will generate the custom quote for what it's going to cost to represent them, based on parameters that you build in there. Probably you can create that in a spreadsheet, but here, that's an example of using technology for something that many firms are not using technology for today. Workflow automation is a big one. Clio has been trying to improve on this and add to it for years with their Clio Managed product and creating lists and automating lists so that when you bring on a new client, you're an estate planning firm, you bring on a new client, you hit go on an estate plan, and boom, it gives you all the to-dos, the deadlines, assigns it to the right people. That's huge, right? It takes a huge burden off of the labor cost, the overhead of serving that file, and gets everybody on the same page. Somebody now knows what's expected of them, when it's due, and all of that, helps to move the needle. So, now at the end of the day, all of this stuff and the way that we think about it, there's one more piece to this. There's one more piece to this that we didn't discuss or touch on, and that is international labor. So we understand the differentiation between attorney, paralegal, legal assistant, or some other role there, case manager. There's a lot of different ways to describe roles. But what we didn't talk about is the presence of the global workforce, right? And this gives us yet another massive opportunity, because we can get access to people who have the same brains that people on U.S. soil have, but they don't have the same cost of living. They don't have the same expectation of income. And therefore, if we can find somebody who the language is good enough and the skill set is good enough that can operate remotely in our business and be fully functional, be a fully functioning employee at a fraction of the price. I think a international worker hired through Get Staffed Up, one of our partners, is billed out at something like $2,400 a month. So you're talking about Um, 20, let me just do the math here. 2,400 times 12, $28,800 annually is what they cost. You're probably not getting a decent worker in the US for double that and maybe not even triple that, right? So you can, by having somebody, an international worker, you can cut your labor costs by somewhere between 66 and 50%, right? Or said differently, with the same amount of labor spend, you can get 2 or 3 people instead of 1. That's pretty wild, right? And it's not a new concept. You know, when I first started this podcast back in March of 2019, that concept was very new. And Get Staffed Up was a trailblazer in that area. Now there's a ton of these agencies out there. Everybody knows about it. It's not a secret. It's not a new idea. Yet there's still so many law firm owners out there that haven't tried it, that haven't brought on an international worker into their business. Our business here is approaching a headcount of 20 people, and we have 3 employees residing in the U.S. We have 1 U.S.-based employee residing abroad. So we have 4 U.S.-based employees on payroll out of 20, or near 20. I don't know the exact number at the time I'm recording this, but that's pretty wild. And what that has allowed us to do is more with less. Now, if I were a smart business owner, then I would be making more money because of that. But in reality, this is the way I built my business. So my pricing strategy is built around that cost structure already, and therefore I am not profiting from that savings. But that just is what it is. That's my that's my own shortcomings. The reality is that, you know, if you're currently operating with all US-based staff, then you can try this on and you can potentially increase the throughput or decrease the cost and have the same result. And that's something that I invite you to do. And if you want to check out Get Staffed Up, you could do that at profitwithlaw.com/get staffed up. Now we have created something called the Firm Focus Sheet, which helps you to identify what are the things that you should be focusing on. What are the things that are important for you to spend your time on? What are the things that are going to move the needle for you? Helps you to really stay focused and make sure that you're doing your highest and best value, which is going to help you prevent overwhelm. It's going to help you to stay healthy and not feel burnt out. And it's going to give you more fulfillment in the work that you do, because who wants to show up and not do work that's worth their while, right? Like, do I feel fulfilled when I do the laundry in my house? Do I feel fulfilled when I clean my own toilets? Or is that really, it's not that it's beneath me, but it's not fulfilling work either. Like, I don't load the dishwasher in the kitchen and say, whoa, yes, I was a man today. I loaded the dishwasher, right? No, I did it because I had to. But what I would much rather have been doing was having a catch with my son in the backyard or being on a coaching call with a law firm owner, right? Like the stuff that I love to do. So why not fill your day with the stuff you love to do? Why do you want to hold on to anything that you don't love to do? What that does is it frees you up to do the things that you love to do, which is then going to increase your lifestyle. It's going to make you happier. It's going to remove stress. And honestly, it's a really good business move because it's going to make you more efficient in the stuff that you do. So hopefully this made sense for you. Download that Firm Focus Sheet at profitwithlaw.com/firm focus sheet. And think about this. Think about adopting some of these things in your business. You know, how can, and we can have a whole discussion on time management, but basically just take inventory of how you're spending your time. take a piece of paper and a pen, and throughout the day, just write down, when you're starting a new activity, what you're doing, what time it is, and then calculate the hours that you're spending on stuff that you really shouldn't be spending your time on, and delegate that. Get somebody else to do that. It's going to be a massive change for you in your lifestyle. Your firm is going to skyrocket from it because you're going to get way more efficient in how you're deploying resources within your firm. And when you do this well for yourself, and then you do it from the top down and in your team, there's no holding you back then, right? Like that, like this is really the afterburner superpower that you can put onto the rocket launchers of your firm. So, check it out and, see what you come up with for yourself. All right.